There are so many questions about this case, and to help us better understand what will happen next is California-based trial attorney Rachel Fiset. Rachel, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
At first, you heard the district attorney saying they already have enough evidence to charge Patel with attempted murder. What more will they need to help their case in proving that he did it intentionally?
They don't yet have a motive other than that he appeared to be trying to murder himself and his family. I think to piece this together, to bring it in front of a jury and to really get a conviction, they'll have to show what was going on inside of that house that led to this. Was this premeditated? Was this a fight in the car? What led to him making these actions on the road? Because the actions themselves, if you listen to the DA, seem very damning that they were intentionally done. They are in a pattern that one would not accidentally have done them. There's no evidence that he tried to break or fell asleep. So they're seeing intentional acts from the witnesses and the cameras, but now they're going to want to take a step backwards and see what led to this horrific act.
And we learned Patel's wife is still in the hospital and has not spoken to investigators yet. How crucial is it for the prosecution to talk to her and get her side of the story?
Well, the prosecution is, in theory, prosecuting on behalf of the victims, and she is the main adult victim. So her testimony will be crucial. They will compel her to testify. Will she voluntarily give an interview? We don't know, because we really don't know the status of their relationship or what was going on inside that home or inside that car. So there are a million possibilities of what could be happening, but when people on the jury hear about victims that are still living, they generally want to hear from the victims. So I think her testimony is pretty crucial.
But is there a chance that she doesn't testify or give a statement against her husband?
There is always that chance. So she can refuse if she thinks that, I mean, let's go down a crazy path for a moment. What if she's in on it? And what if they had made this plan together? Well, she would exercise her Fifth Amendment rights if there was any possibility at all that she could be prosecuted for a crime. So she has the right not to testify until she's given immunity, which means there would be no possibility of her being prosecuted. And if she's given immunity, they can compel her to testify.
What about the kids? They're 7 and 4 years old. We learned that they're with the father's family right now, but could the kids give some insight to investigators?
I'm sure they could. The 4-year-old is fairly unreliable, but may have some things to say. I'm sure they will be interviewed with an adult present, and there'll be some precautions taken in such an incident like this. Were the kids awake when this happened? These are all questions we really don't know the answers to at this point, but they may be able to give some insight into what was going on inside that all of their relationships.
Okay, what about Patel's defense? How do you think his lawyers will try to spin this?
I think they have to look at the surveillance evidence, which we don't have, listen to the eyewitness accounts. We have to see whether there's any room there based on what the DA knows. What they're going to try to dig into there is whether there is a way that this was potentially accidental, because normally people may go off that cliff in other car accidents, and they may do that accidentally. So if there's some way to show that this was all an accidental car accident, they may head down that path. But again, that all depends on what was going on inside, whether the wife survives to testify and will testify, what the kids say. There are a lot of unknowns. They appear to, just on the face of this, have charged the crime because based on what they know about the car and the incident, it looked intentional. But we are nowhere near all of the evidence that this investigation will uncover.
This seems to be such an unusual case with all 4 of them surviving that crash, 250 feet down a cliff. Does it make it easier for the prosecutors having surviving witnesses?
Well, I think it makes it easier if they're willing to talk.
Right.
So the surviving witnesses, particularly his wife, it really depends on which way that goes. I think if this was intentional, there was no way that anybody foresaw survivors. So she can talk, and apparently she made a real-time statement that absolutely we will all be privy to should a trial happen. Mm-hmm. What she said upon her rescue will be incredibly important. But I don't think this was contemplated when he went off this cliff.
And Patel's next court hearing is in February. What are the next steps in this case?
Well, he'll be arraigned and he'll enter a plea. He may enter a plea of not guilty. Then they will go through the evidence as they have it and have a preliminary hearing, which means, whether the charges stand. They generally do after preliminary hearing, but that does give the defense some insight into the prosecution's case against him. So that's the time where what she said will be revealed, what other things they uncovered in the investigation will be revealed. I think eventually, after the preliminary hearing, as the case goes on, we will hear from experts as to accident sites and crashes and patterns of driving and patterns of behavior while driving, and how that could have occurred if that's one of his defenses, is that this was completely unintentional. How you'll have competing experts from each side discussing whether that's really a possibility or not.
All right, and we know CHP has the car. They're going to keep looking into it and keep investigating. Rachel, thank you so much for your time and your insight. This is a fascinating case that I know we both will continue to all cover it, and you'll be following it very closely. So we'll check back in with you very soon.
Thanks for having me.